Are you struggling with Nobunaga's ambition awakening? Is the game causing you too many headaches, or are you just looking to improve your campaigns? Well, look no further. This video is for you. Ever since my review of Awakening, I've had a number of requests from people asking if I can discuss the game a little bit more, either for new players or just players who are having a bit of difficulty with the game. So I've decided to make this video, where I can go over the basics and give out some tips that I've learned over my many hours of playing now. In this video, we'll cover setting up your game, initial goals, how to develop your clan efficiently, what to do with your council, wider diplomacy, and of course, warfare. I will leave timestamps below to each section of the video so that you can find what you're looking for. With that said, let's dive in and get the game set up. One of the common questions I get is which start date should you choose? And to be honest, it doesn't really matter. What matters more is what clan you choose. Feel free to choose any start date you want. Obviously, each one will have its own unique circumstances surrounding it. But what is important is that if you're just learning the game or struggling with it, you should probably go for one of the clans that has the recommended symbol above them. This means that these clans will usually have a bit easier of a time and will have a nice number of historical events that will come your way rather quickly thanks to the start date. Basically, these clans are highlighted because the start date is more specific to them, not only in terms of being interesting themselves with their story, but also because they usually sit in a nice prominent position at the beginning of the start date, making your initial challenge much simpler. For this video, I selected to play as the Saito starting in 1546. Now the next thing you want to do is check your settings. The game is by default set to easy, but if you are someone who wants to fine-tune things a bit more, you certainly can. One of the things I might recommend tweaking if you are struggling is the AI aggressiveness, as the AI in this game is extremely relentless and cutthroat. This is already a very difficult game, so don't feel bad if you want to tone the AI aggressiveness down. This also might help with keeping your playthrough more historical, as sometimes the AI can be so aggressive that they start getting crazy powerful way too early. What this usually looks like is that in most games that I've played, the Oda end up taking Kyoto before the Battle of Okehizama even has a chance to happen. So turning the AI aggressiveness down might help keep that in check. There are a lot of other interesting settings you can mess with as well, but the last one I want to mention here is if you are having a hard time, you may want to keep tutorials on. There are a ton of tutorials in this game, pretty much at every turn, and they can be pretty helpful, so I definitely recommend that you keep them on if you are struggling. Alright, but the final thing I want to bring up before we start the game is regarding events. Although the game allows you to mess with events while in the game as well, turning certain ones off and on at will, if you want, you can also just choose here to turn all events off. This will make your campaign a bit more random, but also a bit more fair as well, being that some of the events can have some pretty large effects. But now that we've got all that covered, let's start our game. So now that we're in, the first thing we need to do is determine who our allies and enemies are going to be. And this is where you need to be very careful. It can be very tantalizing to want to go after all the minor little clans around you, but in reality you can and should avoid them, at least for the most part. Instead, who you should be really focusing on is who is going to be your biggest threat. You want to be fighting who you think your main rival is going to be, because if you don't, they will take advantage of your other campaigns and invade you when you least expect it. And of course, not going for them will also allow them to expand on their own as well, becoming even more of a problem to eventually deal with. In this campaign, I think it would be best if we were to head north and deal with the Asakura first. But this also leaves the Takeda to our east as a potential major threat. To this, what would probably be best would be to ally with the Takeda as quickly as possible. But we will get into that later when we start talking about diplomacy. The next thing you want to look at is your list of historical events. This is something you should be keeping an eye on throughout your playthrough, but it is imperative you look at it right away. The game gives you access to toggling every event either on or off. Now if you want a strictly historical playthrough, you'll obviously want to leave all these on. But if you don't really care and want to make sure you are using every tool at your disposal, just go in and toggle off all the events that will help your neighbors and hurt you. I know this might feel like cheating, and trust me, I feel that too, but the game gives you direct access over this. It is a core element of your campaign, so you might as well take advantage of it. Some clans actually require you to do this, like if you're playing the Imagawa anywhere around 1560, because obviously you don't want the Battle of Okehizama to happen. Just make sure to save when you are done, so that events you toggled off stay toggled off if you have to reload for some reason. Alright, now let's turn to what to do to start developing our clan and ensuring we are using all of our labor points efficiently. Each clan is of course different in terms of what they start out with and how well off they are. Some clans will start out already making tons of money and will have a lot of labor simply due to how many castles they start with. The Saito here are okay, but not amazing. They are pretty average in terms of what I've seen so far. Now, the key to developing your clan is making sure that you are constantly using up all of your labor on projects. This will make sure that you are able to keep up the pace along with the AI, because like I said, they'll be relentless, constantly growing and developing their domains and just amassing tens of thousands of troops. You need to make sure that you can keep up so that you can compete with them and not fall behind, because if you do, you are pretty much dead. To start off, I immediately began using my labor to develop my daimyo territory. Usually what I prefer to do is start by seizing fairs. This will help increase my income. Then, once all those are complete, I move on to farms to increase my supplies and troop numbers. Once everything is maxed out, I begin building further improvements. Usually I do markets to capitalize on my fairs and commons to capitalize on my farms. These will continue to make sure that I receive more wealth, supplies, and soldiers. Now, you don't need to make sure these are all completed before you turn to other things like diplomacy and warfare, but it is important that you keep doing them until they are all finished. Once they are done, you can start building town facilities. These can be built across all of your clan's territory, not just your own daimyo land. The two most important ones I think to go for right away are training grounds for more troops and trading towns to continue to grow your wealth. Of course, there are more useful ones that you'll need to get in time, but I think these two are the ones you should start out with. But moving on, let's talk about your council now. This is where you do all of your clan's inner workings, from managing officers to implementing policies to trading. Let's actually start with trading. In the shop, you can buy and sell both supplies and treasures. And I very much recommend that you stock up on treasures whenever possible. Giving away treasures is not only a key way to secure the loyalty of officers, but also a great way to secure truces with other hostile clans who are invading you. Having a surplus of treasures will come in handy. Other things you can obviously do in your council is check up on the hierarchy of your officers. In Nobunaga's Ambition Awakening, your officers all have a rank within your clan that goes up by doing more things and acquiring more honor. Think of it as them leveling up, with the higher ranking officers able to do much more. It is also good for keeping track of your officers, something which can get pretty daunting. You want to make sure the best officers are utilized for specific areas in which they excel, but early on you need to sort of work with what you got. It's only much later in the game, once you have a ton of officers, that you can really start picking through them to make sure that everyone is working at full efficiency. You can also assign officers to an inner council of sorts that has a wide range of effects on your clan depending on who you appoint. But in order to appoint more officers to this, you need to make sure you have the correct policies to expand it. So this is where we are going to be getting into the policy screen. I've said it before, but I think the policy system in Awakening is by far the best way I've seen it implemented yet in any Nobunaga's Ambition game I've played. Policies are all about improving your clan. You get access to a base amount at the start of your campaign, with perhaps some unique ones depending on who you are playing as. The Saito do not look like they have any unique ones, sadly. You obviously acquire more policies as you go, either through events or through officers you appoint to your inner council. Some of these are going to be locked behind having a certain prestige requirement or are only implementable by officers of a certain political stance. There is a lot to get into here, but the two you should really focus on starting right away are System Reform 1 and 2. 2 specifically because it will allow you to set up defensive bases, which can be key as they allow you to initiate sieges. Just be careful implementing too many policies too quickly, as each policy will cost a permanent sum of money, not only to introduce but even more so to improve. Alright, now that we have all of that out of the way, there are really only two more topics I want to cover in this video, those being diplomacy and warfare. Let's start out with diplomacy. Like I mentioned earlier, I want to form an alliance with the Takeda. The way I go about doing this is by first setting up a diplomat to begin working on goodwill with them. If the Takeda were more hostile or untrusting of me, I may want to give them a treasure to increase my relations with them first, to make sure that it does not take too long to earn their trust. Basically, the more a clan dislikes you, the longer it will take to do diplomacy with them. Once you have enough trust, you can go ahead and start up an alliance. But then, right away afterwards, you want to resend that diplomat to begin building up relations with them again. Think of trust like a currency. You use it to get things from other clans, but in a way it's like spending them. So you will need more trust in order to maintain that alliance after its 12-month period runs out. The only way to forge a permanent alliance is through marriage. Forgetting to reassign a diplomat can be extremely costly, so make sure you are always on the ball with it. But clans are not the only thing you can do diplomacy with, as you can also perform diplomacy with the Imperial Court. To do this, you first need to have a rank in the court, something the Saito don't start with. However, if you continue to give the court money when they ask, you will eventually receive a position. However, you should really not worry about doing anything with the court too early in the game, as it can really be extremely costly. But it is good to keep in mind as well, as there are some really great benefits it comes with once you have enough wealth to begin engaging in court politics. Okay, but now, final thing. Warfare. Before you set your armies on the warpath, you need to make sure you have everything else covered. Use covert operations if possible to ensure that other clans don't seize the opportunity to attack you, and also use covert actions if possible to deal damage to the target castle you are going after. To select a castle to target, simply click on it, then select it as a target. This will begin the process of militarization across your domain as your armies prepare to march. Sure, you could just march without doing this, but then you run the risk of your armies not being fully prepared in terms of supplies and troops. Once ready, launch the attack. And make sure you are bringing as many armies as you will need as well, leaving behind those you want to stay stationed in case of an attack from other clans. You are at your most vulnerable during a campaign and directly after, because all of your armies are either away or your troop numbers are lowered from battle. It's why the AI chooses to attack you when you do this. However, when the AI goes on campaign, it's also a great time to attack them, so it works in both ways, and is something great to take advantage of. Now, if you do get attacked by another clan while on campaign, don't panic. Just try to negotiate a truce, if you can. This is where you can use your treasure to broker a peace once again. However, be careful, because if you are in an alliance with another clan, the attacking clan might demand that you break that alliance in order for there to be a truce. This is something that can have massive diplomatic ramifications, so be prepared. This is why using covert actions and diplomacy beforehand might be the better alternative. Now, if you have been following each of these steps, you should have yourself in a pretty good spot in your campaign, so this is probably a good place to leave things off. I think I covered everything I needed to, and I hope I didn't miss anything. But if you do have any more questions, please feel free to either ask me in the comments below or reach out to me on Discord. I'd be happy to help in any way I can. And with that said, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell if you enjoyed this video and found it to be most informative.